For a while now, we're returning to the Legends of Elden Ring to finish what's left of this series. Elden Ring is a game with an enormous amount of lore and content, so fully understanding it is never easy. But the deeper you explore, the more captivating it becomes, especially when you start noticing the smaller stories hidden inside the larger tapestry. And few stories are as compelling as the one centered on a demigod as influential as Miquella, known as the eternally young demigod. Miquella stands as the embodiment of purity and compassion in a world rotted by power and deception. But that purity is not a symbol of weakness. If anything, it's the source of a grand ambition, an iron will to rebuild the world's order with his own hands. In Miquella's blood flows not only divine blessing, but also the curse of fate, because he is bound by the tangled relationships between demigods, each carrying their own desires and agendas. While these forces compete for control over the lands between, Miquella chooses a different path, a path of salvation, but one shrouded in doubt, because even his kindness cannot escape being twisted by this world. So the question becomes, is Miquella's gentle purpose truly the rebirth of humanity, or is it an unfinished dream, restrained by love and an obsession with perfection? No one can answer with certainty, because the tool he uses to influence everything around him is bewitchment, a power that few can resist. And that forces us to ask, is Miquella genuinely revered, or do people follow him only because they've fallen under the spell of his charm? That is exactly why Miquella is one of the most complex characters in Elden Ring, both the final hope and the greatest unknown. A light that might bring a true dawn, or another beautiful lie, controlled by the hunger for power, just as we once saw with Queen Marika. This video will unravel those mysteries. Miquella is one of the most fascinating characters in Elden Ring, both literally and symbolically. He has the power to enchant others, and everything around him is filled with secrets and tragedies that pull us in almost against our will. Even though Miquella doesn't truly appear until the DLC, his nature isn't completely impenetrable. After defeating Malenia, we obtain the remembrance of the rock goddess, and it offers a broader view of who Miquella really is. Miquella and Malenia are both the children of a single god, meaning they are both Empyreans. But from birth, they were made to suffer. One was cursed with eternal childhood, and the other was marked by rot. After separating herself into male and female aspects, Marika united with her own male counterpart, and from that union came two children, Malenia and Miquella. They are twins, and because they were born from only one divine being, they are almost like reflections, copies, of Marika herself. Perhaps that is precisely why they were considered worthy of becoming Empyreans. While Malenia was infected by the scarlet rot, parasitized by the influence of the outer god of rot, slowly decaying her body, Miquella remained trapped in the form of a child, unable to grow. These are the curses placed upon them, and their true origin remains unclear. And yet, despite the suffering, Miquella never surrendered to fate. He promised his twin sister that he would find a way, no matter what, to break the curse for both of them. In return, Malenia loved her brother completely, becoming his shield and his blade, the sword of Miquella. They were bound together like shadow and body, each one acting as the other's will. But if Malenia is the supreme warrior, the blade feared across the lands between, then what is Miquella known for? Where does his power truly come from? An item description, often linked to his brand, states that Miquella is an Empyrean beloved by many. And that's not an exaggeration. Winning people's affection is practically his specialty. Malenia's own recorded words reinforce it. My brother will keep his promise. He possesses the wisdom and allure of a god. He is the most fearsome Empyrean among us. That line is important because it tells you what makes Miquella dangerous. His strength isn't physical force. It's enchantment, a kind of irresistible influence that draws others into devotion. And it doesn't seem to have a ceiling. Even demigods who couldn't be broken on the battlefield eventually had to admit they'd been captured by Miquella's pull. Is that love? Submission? Worship? No one can say for sure. It might be all of them at once. But one fact remains. This ability to charm and bind hearts is what elevates Miquella into one of the most overwhelming powers in the lands between. And yet, at the start, Miquella didn't appear to be trying to rule the world. As a child of Marika and Radagon, he initially placed his faith in the Golden Order, the system his mother stood for. He even created sacred incantations as gifts for Radagon, spells that later became part of Orthodox Golden Order teachings. That tells us something. Miquella wasn't born as a rebel. He had a place within the existing divine structure, and for a time, he seemed to be cherished within it.
But that wouldn't last.
One incantation, often connected to Radagon's ring and the Golden Order's fundamentalist tradition, reveals the turning point. It was a spell associated with Golden Order orthodoxy, presented as a token of recognition for the boy Miquella. And yet, Miquella ultimately abandoned that orthodoxy for one simple reason. It could not cure Malnia. The Golden Order couldn't stop the rot. For a long time, Miquella searched for a way to save his sister and failed. And slowly, that failure became a verdict. The system he trusted had nothing for them. Marika's reign, her grace, the supposed perfection of the Order, none of it could protect Malnia from a curse rooted deeper than their world's laws. Because Malenia's affliction wasn't just a sickness. It was the imprint of an outer god, a force beyond the Order's authority. And if that curse came from something outside the system, then the system itself was never going to be enough to undo it. The greater will wouldn't intervene. Marika couldn't override it, because Marika, in the end, is still a vessel, a mechanism bound to the Elden Ring rather than a free hand shaping reality. That realization reshaped Miquella's entire worldview. From that moment, Miquella began to believe the divine powers governing the lands between were not acting for the good of people, or even for the good of life itself. They were acting for their own designs. And if that was true, then the first priority wasn't winning the throne. It was stopping their interference. So Miquella chose to protect the weak, the humble, the vulnerable, the ones the great systems usually crush. And that's where his most important creation enters the story: unalloyed gold. A purified material, crafted not for decoration but as a tool, an instrument of resistance. It became the foundation for artifacts made to serve Miquella's purpose. Warriors aligned with him carried equipment inlaid with this pure gold, a symbol meant to elevate devotion and bind their service to his cause. But the most critical application was far more personal. Needles forged from unalloyed gold could hold back Malenia's rot. Because Miquella's gold does something rare in Elden Ring's cosmology, it can resist the touch of outer gods. It doesn't cure the rot in a simple sense, it interrupts the invasion. It pushes back against a force that the Golden Order couldn't even meaningfully challenge. And that, more than anything, tells you what Miquella truly is. Not just a gentle demigod, not just a figure people love. He's someone who looked at the gods, saw the machinery behind them, and decided to build a way to say no. So when the needle is driven into the body, it can actually halt the spread of rot, not erase it, not reverse the damage, but stop it from worsening. And for Malenia, the damage was already catastrophic. She had lost her eyes, both legs, and an arm. Miquella couldn't give her back what was taken, but he could give her a way to keep living and keep fighting. He crafted golden prosthetics that let her move and battle like the unmatched swordswoman the world would come to fear. One of Miquella's needles reaches even further. It can interfere with the influence of the frenzied flame, an outer god tied to annihilation and madness. But even that tool is imperfect, unfinished, so the only way to truly force the effect is to use it under specific conditions, at the heart of the storm beyond time in crumbling Farum Azula. Still, the implication is staggering. Miquella's work doesn't just treat symptoms. It can push back against the outer gods themselves, offering relief to the weak and the suffering, those the world has forgotten. But then we realize his vision was never meant to stop at small acts of rescue. Clues embedded in the armor of his sworn knights describe a force bound by oath, bearing the insignia of a sacred tree. That tree, the Haligtree, was watered from its earliest growth with Miquella's own blood. And yet it never reached the destiny he intended. It did not fully become what it was meant to be. That detail matters, because it suggests that once Miquella lost faith in the Golden Order, he didn't just want to fix its failures, he wanted to replace it. He tried to cultivate a new pillar of authority, a new center of grace, a new world tree that could support a new age under his rule. He bled for it literally, and still it failed to mature. Miquella imagined a realm built on care rather than conquest, a sanctuary where abandoned peoples could live without being hunted or erased. And even though his grand design stalled, the Haligtree wasn't meaningless. It still became a refuge. Later, Loretta, a royal knight, sought a future for the Albinorix, a people discarded by the order of the world. She led them toward the Haligtree as a promised land, and for a time, they found shelter there, until violence arrived and shattered that fragile peace. The Haligtree also drew, in other marginalized beings, the kind of lives that Marika's system treated as mistakes that should never have existed. That irony is the point. The very groups Marika's age rejected were welcomed by the child she favored most. It reveals what Miquella's kindness really looks like, not sentimental softness, but deliberate protection. He didn't confront his mother directly, yet he still tried to do what her order refused to do. There are even traces that Miquella attempted to help Godwyn after the Night of the Black Knives, after Godwyn became a terrible half-life that spread the Prince of Death's influence through the roots of the world. Miquella sought a way to grant him rest. He reached out to those connected to Castle Sol, offering access and alliance, and in return asked them to pray for an eclipse, a cosmic event that could drive out the deathly curse from Godwyn's body. But the eclipse never came. Another plan collapsed. Another mercy failed. And eventually, Miquella faced a brutal conclusion. His power, however extraordinary, still had limits. Good intentions alone were not enough. Not in a world ruled by gods, curses, and systems that don't care who suffers. Which leads to the turning point. As an Empyrean, Miquella isn't merely a demigod. He is a candidate to become a true god, someone who can rule the lands between at the highest level. And if he could reach that position, he would finally have the authority to create the world he kept trying to build from the margins. But to ascend, he would need something specific, a consort. At some point in the distant past, Miquella bound himself to a vow with Radon, a promise that when Miquella became a god, Radon would stand as his consort. We don't know whether Radon agreed freely, or whether Miquella's bewitching influence shaped the promise. What we do know is that the vow existed, and later it broke. After returning to Caelid, Radon no longer honored the pact. He refused to meet Miquella again, and that refusal didn't end in silence. It detonated into war. Maelnia, who calls herself the Blade of Miquella, marched east and brought an army to force Radon to fulfill the promise he had once made. And from that demand, the lands between descended into one of its most devastating conflicts. This suggests Radon may have been pulled in by Miquella's bewitchment, and that once the spell loosened, he rejected a fate he never truly chose. What followed was a clash between two of the most terrifying demigods in the lands between, and it tore Caelid apart. Driven to win at any cost, Maelnia made a catastrophic decision. She broke the needle that had been restraining the scarlet rot inside her. The seal snapped, and the rot surged outward, blooming into the scarlet Ionia and poisoning the region in a single, overwhelming wave. One item describes that moment with chilling clarity. When Maelnia, the Blade of Miquella, let the rot flower bloom, Radon heard a whisper. Miquella was waiting for him, the promised consort. The aftermath was ruin. Radon didn't simply lose a battle. He was shattered. Infected and half-mad, he wandered the endless battlefield, consuming the corpses of the fallen. Maelnia, meanwhile, collapsed into unconsciousness and was carried back by her knight to the Haligtree. But with the needle broken, the rot returned with full force. It didn't just reawaken in Maelnia, it began spreading through the Haligtree itself. And there she waited, anticipating Miquella's return, because Miquella was supposed to be there, at the roots, tending the tree. But while Maelnia lay away, Miquella was taken. The one who seized him was Mog, Lord of Blood, Marika's rejected child. Born an omen, marked as impure, Mog was forced into darkness beneath the world. He grew into something shaped by resentment. He abandoned the Golden Order and pursued his own bloody dynasty, devoted to a terrifying outer god, the Formless Mother. Mog's ambition was simple and monstrous. He wanted Miquella as his consort, the centerpiece of the blood-soaked kingdom he intended to raise. So he stole Miquella's cocoon, placed it within his palace, fed it with blood, and waited, convinced that Miquella would awaken and answer him. But nothing happened. Even the texts connected to Mog's remembrance make it clear, no matter how much blood he offered, he received no response from the sleeping Empyrean. And here the story twists, because the truth may not be that Mog chose Miquella. It may be that Miquella chose Mog. Miquella's bewitchment doesn't only attract admiration, it can produce fixation. Mog's obsession can be read not as strategy, but as enchantment, a compulsion planted in him, pushing him to cradle the cocoon, feed it, protect it, and build a whole dynasty around it. Mog believed he was taking a god. In reality, he may have been preserving a tool. Because Miquella never wanted Mog as a consort. Mog was useful, nothing more. And later, we begin to see the outline of the real plan through a record of a hidden rite. A lord will pave the way for the return of a god, and that lord's soul will require a vessel. In other words, a lord is not just a partner, he's a component. A soul to be harvested, a body to be repurposed. That framework reframes everything. From Mog, Miquella needed the body, a vessel. From Radon, Miquella needed the soul, because Radon's body had been ruined by rot. And from someone else, Miquella needed the final hand, the one who would kill the necessary pieces and push the ritual to completion. That final hand is the Tarnished, the outsider who arrives from afar and cuts down every obstacle on the road to the Elden Throne. The Tarnished's victories become the engine of Miquella's endgame. Once Radon and Mog fall, the last locks are removed, and Miquella moves, leaving the cocoon and entering the hidden realm beneath the shadow of the great tree, the Land of Shadow. But he doesn't go alone. Others are drawn into the wake of his path, people from different places with different motives, converging without coordination, all stepping into the same darkness for their own reasons. Among them is Needle Knight Lita, a knight devoted to Miquella. She is the one who meets the Tarnished in Mog's palace, explains what has happened, and invites the Tarnished to follow, into the shadowed world where Miquella's plan is waiting to be completed. Lita understands something most of the others only feel without being able to name. An enchantment hangs over the group, an invisible restraint that keeps them loyal to Miquella and prevents them from turning on one another. But because she comes from Miquella's own knightly order, her devotion isn't merely the result of the spell. Even without it, she would not waver. To Lita, loyalty isn't a feeling, it's identity. Freya's story is different. She was once among Radon's finest, personally welcomed into his ranks, a warrior of real standing. But after the scarlet rot swept across Caelid, she was infected and left behind, effectively abandoned to die. And it was in that moment, when everyone else had already written her off, that Miquella intervened. The description is almost grotesque, her wounds swollen and festering, the stench of rot thick in the air, and Miquella still chose to save her, drawing the poison out instead of turning away. After that, Freya didn't simply feel gratitude. She was conquered, emotionally, spiritually, and she followed Miquella from then on. Sir Ansbach represents another angle. He was tied to Mog's household, originally approaching Miquella with suspicion, trying to understand what Miquella truly wanted. But Miquella's bewitchment is not the kind of force you debate with. It's the kind you wake up inside of. Ansbach had already realized that Mog himself had been ensnared, and he tried to challenge Miquella to break the grip and protect his lord. The result was bitter irony. The rescuer became another captive. He, too, fell under the same allure he set out to resist. Then there are the outsiders who follow for reasons beyond personal rescue. One member comes from a dry leaf, tradition, people who once revered an older power, but watched it decay. When a faith collapses, it doesn't disappear. It looks for a new object. They turned toward Miquella because they believed he was the replacement they had been waiting for, a new divine center to worship. Hornsent is more complicated because his loyalty is layered with hate. His mask and name point back to an older people, the ones who once held this land before Marika's forces through Mesmer burned it down. That history doesn't vanish even under bewitchment. Hornsent's contempt remains for the Golden Order, for Marika, for Mesmer, for everyone connected to that devastation. And yet he still follows Miquella, because Miquella promises something no one else offers: purification, an erasure of Marika's crimes, a cleansing of the atrocities that stained the world. In that sense, Hornsent isn't just chasing hope. He's chasing reparations. And then there's Thylier, someone who sounds like a noble by name, but is nothing of the sort. He belongs to a grotesque insect-like lineage tied to the Scarlet Rot, creatures created to serve the Rot's outer god. But Malnia, despite carrying the potential to become a new goddess of that force, never embraced the role. She rejected it, and by rejecting it, she also abandoned the beings bound to that power. Without a master, without purpose, Thylier drifted until he found Miquella. And he chose to serve Miquella as a new center of meaning, a new figure worthy of devotion. So these companions trail behind Miquella into the land of shadow, pulled by different reasons: love, gratitude, obsession, faith, revenge, emptiness. They are not a party in the usual sense. They are fragments orbiting the same gravity well. Because Miquella is moving toward a destination, Inirilum, the site of the Divine Gate, where Marika once rose and became a god. Miquella intends to follow that path, but first he must do something brutal and symbolic. He must strip away what remains of his mortal self. So he begins to discard himself. Piece by piece, he sheds flesh, relinquishes power, and abandons the last remnants of the demigod he used to be, preparing for an ascent that demands sacrifice, not comfort. They don't simply disappear. The pieces Miquella sheds become rune-like fragments scattered across the land of shadow, breadcrumbs left behind for anyone still following his trail. And as Miquella strips away his power, something crucial happens. The enchantment weakens. The charm that held the group together, kept them loyal, kept them from fighting, starts to fall apart. Once the spell fades, the companions stop orbiting in harmony. They splinter. The alliance dissolves into individuals again, each pulled by their own motives. Lita, who had always stood closest to Miquella, reacts exactly as you'd expect. Without the spell maintaining unity, she assumes betrayal is inevitable. In her mind, if Miquella is vulnerable, then the people around him become threats. So she begins investigating the others, looking for the first knife. Her suspicion naturally targets the two with the clearest reasons to turn: Hornsent and Sir Ansbach. Hornsent, even free of enchantment, still respects Miquella, not because he's controlled, but because he believes in the promise that Miquella will cleanse the world of Marika's crimes and wash away the atrocities that defined her age. But the hatred inside him doesn't evaporate. His resentment toward Marika, Mesmer, and everything tied to the Golden Order still burns. That's why the Tarnished can end up on Hornsent's enemy list. If the Tarnished confronts Mesmer without involving Hornsent, or speaks to Hornsent after Mesmer falls, Hornsent may interpret it as the wrong kind of alliance, the wrong kind of outcome. To him, you become part of what he despises. Thylier, meanwhile, collapses into aimlessness once the group breaks. With the shared purpose gone, he doesn't know what he is anymore. He voices it in a raw, almost childlike way, abandoned, unloved, asking what comes after rejection. And the Tarnished's response matters. If you tell him to stop clinging to the past and keep walking, he latches onto a new purpose. Miquella becomes his next anchor. But if you affirm that his sorrow is permanent and unavoidable, he sinks into it, until that despair eventually consumes him. Dryleaf Dane keeps to his original hunger. His tradition needs a new god. That's why he wants Miquella to succeed. For Dane, Miquella isn't just a leader, he's a replacement divinity, the answer to a faith that's been searching for something worthy. Sir Ansbach, once the enchantment breaks, remembers the real reason he came here in the first place, to understand Miquella and to stop him if necessary. He digs deeper and realizes the shape of the plan. Miquella intends to use Mog's body as a vessel and connect it to Radon in a way that treats them like components rather than people. To Ansbach, that isn't just wrong. It's humiliation. It's desecration. And that is a line he cannot accept. Freya takes a different view. Even though she served Radon, she remains drawn to Miquella. She remembers the vow Miquella once made, connected to Radon, and she wants to understand what that oath truly meant. When Ansbach writes to her and lays out the situation, calling the union a disgrace, Freya doesn't agree. Her logic is colder. Radon was already cut down by the Tarnished. But if he can return, not as a broken warlord, but as a lord reborn beside a god, then that is a fate worthy of Radon. Not a clean death, a higher role. So Freya and Ansbach split. Same facts, opposite conclusions. And that's where everything converges again. Even though each of them now walks with a separate purpose, vengeance, faith, obsession, duty, rebellion, they all end up aimed at the same final target, Miquella, the young Empyrean preparing to ascend into true godhood. But before he can cross that threshold, Miquella discards the last piece of his mortal self, Saint Trina. Saint Trina is not as thoroughly explained as some of the larger figures in Elden Ring, but she remains one of the most haunting. The evidence is thin, yet sharp enough to cut. Trina is framed as a mysterious presence, a name that carries sleep, fog, and uncertainty. Even her weapon descriptions emphasize it. She isn't presented as a person the world understands. She's presented as a secret the world only touches at the edges. And that is exactly why her role matters. Some say she was a beautiful young woman. Others insist she was a boy. The only thing everyone agrees on is this: her presence is fleeting. She appears, leaves traces behind, and then vanishes as suddenly as she arrived. What item descriptions do make clear is her role. Saint Trina is the saint of sleep, a figure whose power can pull people into a slumber so deep it feels impossible to resist. There are even vessels said to contain sedative mixtures blessed by Trina herself. Their effect isn't like poison in the usual sense. It's closer to a lullaby made physical, like stepping into a soft purple mist that wraps around the mind. The weak can't fight it, and some who fall into that gentle sleep are said to never wake again. And those who receive Trina's gift don't simply rest, they become obsessed. They begin to crave her presence the way you crave a dream you can't return to. So they try to chase her through sleep itself, creating stronger and stronger concoctions to sink deeper, hoping to find her again. One figure, often referenced as a keeper of the craft, recorded and spread formulas for these mixtures, passing them down to others who shared the same devotion. Trina's symbol is the lily, a flower tied directly to the making of sleep-inducing substances. Her followers even use lily-shaped arrows, enchanted so that anyone struck is dragged into sleep. These weapons aren't designed for killing. They're designed for conversion, a quiet way to spread belief, to expand a faith in the shadows. And here's the twist the world didn't understand. Saint Trina wasn't simply a separate saint. She was another face of Miquella. Just as Marika and Radagon share one body, shifting between forms, Miquella also moves between identities. That's why Trina's appearance feels inconsistent. Sometimes seen as a girl, sometimes as a boy. It wasn't contradiction.
It was duality.
But near the end of the journey, Miquella makes a decision that changes everything. He abandons Trina. Trina falls into a deep fissure, down into darkness, marked by a cross left behind like a gravestone. And the words associated with that moment are brutal in their simplicity. "Here I leave my love." If that line is literal, then Miquella didn't just discard a disguise. He discarded the part of himself capable of love, his last mortal softness. And if that's true, then the question becomes unavoidable. If Miquella throws away love, does he become hollow the way Marika became hollow? Does kindness survive godhood once emotion is stripped out? The separation wounds both sides. The trail itself becomes a map written in blood. Miquella's blood is described as golden, and where it spills, golden flowers bloom. Empyrean blood made visible. Trina's blood is violet, like nectar, and from it bloom deep purple blossoms, a different signature left behind on the path. As the Tarnished follows this route, they encounter Thylier, a man wearing a strange mask. He's walking the same road, but his devotion isn't to Miquella. It's to Trina. Long ago, Thylier was given a perfect sleep, so sweet and so gentle that he could never forget it. And that single experience defined his entire life afterward. He spent years searching for Trina again, not for answers or power, but for one more descent into that dream, one more moment of the sleep he believed only she could grant. Even then, Thylier couldn't let go. He tried to brew an even stronger sleeping draft, something potent enough, he believed, to bring down even a dragon like Floris. But no matter how powerful the mixture became, it still lacked what he truly craved. It didn't have the sweetness of nectar. It didn't feel like warmth. It wasn't the gentle embrace he remembered. So it was never enough. His obsession with Trina grew so intense that he fashioned a charm, an amulet etched with a saint's sleeping smile, and wore it close at all times. He inscribed a private confession onto it, the kind of words that sound less like prayer and more like possession, that he alone should be allowed to know her gentle sleep, her sweet embrace, so she should smile for him, and only him. Even he admits he can't stop himself. Later, the Tarnished finds the cleft where Trina fell and leads Thylier there. When they arrive, the valley has erupted into violet bloom. The air is thick with perfume, nectar sweet, soporific, capable of lulling any lost wanderer into soft oblivion. But this place is not only a sanctuary, it's also a grave. Rotting fluids seep from the stone coffin and mingle with Trina's nectar, and the dead rise, not in rage, but in a strange state that resembles eternal rest. From this corruption, an undead guardian awakens, an armored knight bound to protect Trina's remains. Thylier finally reaches what he has chased his entire life. He collapses beside the saint he worships, fulfilled and ruined at the same time. Trina is there like a massive flower rooted into the earth, her nectar flowing endlessly from her body. One drop is enough to grant a blissful, painless sleep. Thylier insists the nectar belongs only to him, that only he deserves to drown in it, to sink into that dream and hear Trina's faint voice. But no matter how much he drinks, he hears nothing, and that silence breaks him. The Tarnished tastes a few drops as well, and it truly does offer something close to a peaceful death, an eternal sleep. But after repeated sips, the dream begins to carry words. A voice finally comes through. Make Miquella stop. Don't turn the poor thing into a god. Godhood would be Miquella's prison, a cage. Divinity is beyond saving. You must kill Miquella. Grant him forgiveness. When the Tarnished tells Thylier what was heard, he erupts. He calls it a lie. He insists it can't be true, because only he should hear her voice. Only him. The jealousy turns into fury, and in that rage he even attacks. When he's defeated, he collapses into despair, tormenting himself as nothing more than a weak, pathetic man. Lita later comments that Thylier's loyalty to Trina is easy to understand, stronger even than his loyalty to Miquella, even when enchantment still lingered. But that's the paradox. Thylier cannot truly betray Miquella because Trina's love for Miquella is absolute. Trina is Miquella's other half, and love like that can't be destroyed. Even abandoned, even discarded, Trina's heart does not turn away. Yet Trina understands where Miquella's road leads, and she knows the ending will not be beautiful. Her greatest wish is that the Tarnished kills Miquella, not out of hatred, but to free him from the trap of godhood. At last, the Tarnished reaches Enirilum, where Miquella is approaching the divine gate to enact the final step of ascension. And there, the Tarnished collides with those who have chosen absolute devotion, Lita and Dryleaf Dane, who are determined to protect Miquella's path no matter the cost. Depending on your choices, Others may also stand against you, or with you. Hornsent may become your enemy if he judges your actions around Mesmer as unforgivable. Freya, if she understands Miquella's plan and still believes Radon deserves rebirth as a lord beside a god, can side with Miquella's loyalists. Thylier, if you guide him to accept Trina's message, may also join you, because Trina's will is clear. Miquella must be stopped. On the opposite side, Sir Ansbach refuses to accept Mog's body being used as a vessel. It is, to him, an insult that cannot be tolerated. So, he aligns with the Tarnished to oppose Miquella's ritual. And if you gave Thylier purpose rather than despair, if you helped him move forward, he may choose to fight for Miquella as well, clinging to Miquella as the last remaining anchor in a world that rejected him. In the end, the battlefield at Anirillim becomes the final sorting of loyalties, devotion versus doubt, salvation versus control, everyone choosing what Miquella truly is to them, right before the gate opens. My loyal blade and champion of the festival, both your deeds will ever be praised in song. Now the vow will be honored, and my brother's soul, Radon, has now been fully restored, reborn inside Mog's body. The Omen flesh is no longer recognizable as Mog's, aside from a few lingering horns on the arms, like scars that refuse to vanish. And Miquella has completed his ascent. The shining circlet above his head announces it plainly. A new age has begun. After defeating Miquella and Radon, the Tarnished obtains the remembrance of a god and a lord, and its description lays out the story behind their union. When Miquella was still young, he saw in Radon the bearing of a true lord, the strength, the nobility, the steadiness. Something in Radon stood in sharp contrast to the suffering and distortion that defined Miquella's own existence. And so Miquella formed a sincere wish that one day, Radon would become his consort. People often call Miquella a benevolent god, and in many ways that label fits. He repeatedly tried to shelter the abandoned, those rejected under the Golden Order, and to counteract the damage his mother's reign inflicted on the world. He didn't just want power, he wanted repair. Miquella also understood the darkest parts of Marika's past, especially the crime committed against the Hornsent, a foundational atrocity, a primordial sin buried beneath the official history. One remembrance tied to Mesmer hints at what Marika did and why she hid him. A serpent-like evil was sealed within Mesmer, and out of fear, Marika removed his eyes and replaced them with a mark of grace. But the same fear drove her to conceal him in the realm of shadow, hiding away not only a dangerous son, but the shame and hatred tied to an older betrayal. Because Marika's original sin was not a single act. It was a theft and a genocide. She turned on the Hornsent, seized the sacred substance they had refined, and used it to rise toward divinity. Then, to erase the evidence both of the theft and the people who could testify to it, she sent her own child to slaughter them. That bloodshed became the buried foundation of her godhood. Miquella knew all of this, but he could not undo it. No apology could resurrect an annihilated people. So his answer was to sever the past and build something new, an age not founded on bodies and ash. That is why he walked into the shadow, abandoning everything, his golden flesh, his radiant power, even the fate assigned to him. The goal is not simply to escape Marika's legacy, but to take the entire weight of that original sin into himself, bury it, then emerge as a new god, supposedly purified by total renunciation. But that brings us to the real question. What was Miquella becoming? He may have started with compassion. He may have genuinely sought to protect the rejected and offer a gentler order than his mother's. But as he stripped away his humanity on the road to godhood, love, tenderness, attachment, something essential may have died along with it. If he discards the parts of himself that can feel, can he still be merciful? He chose to bury Marika's crimes rather than expose them. He chose to erase the past so a new era could be declared clean. But if people followed him only because of enchantment, because of irresistible charm, then who would follow him once that spell was gone? How is that different from Marika offering immortality as bait? It's still a mechanism of control, just a prettier one. And there's an even darker truth underneath. If Miquella becomes a god, he risks becoming exactly what Marika became, a puppet pulled by outer gods and cosmic forces. That destiny isn't glorious. It's a cage. It can be worse than death. In the end, the last thing truly left of Miquella was Trina, the residue of love, the lingering softness. And when the new god is defeated, Trina withers and dies as well. Her life blooms and fades like a breath of wind, leaving behind only a single lily. But this time, the flower holds no nectar.